Okay, we got a 2014 Nissan Altima that we're going to have to change the compressor and accumulator on, or receiver dryer. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but the receiver dryer is underneath the front cover here. Might be able to get to it by taking this part off. That might be enough, and then maybe the bottom. You can kind of see it. Yeah, you can't even see it that way. It's hidden down in here, so we're going to have to figure out what it's going to take to get to that. And the compressor is way down here. So most of that we're probably going to get to from the bottom. We'll see. We'll get some of this stuff out of our way, and I'll come back. Basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this cover off first just to see how much access that gives me to the receiver dryer. Might take this off, this air plenum, go into the air filter, just to get that out of my way so we can kind of see what's going on down there. And then I'm going to have to jack it up, probably pull the passenger wheel off, and get to the belt, and see how much access we got for the compressor there. I wasn't going to videotape this, and I diagnosed this yesterday, and the auto parts store had to order the compressor for it. So what the problem was the AC just wasn't quite getting cold enough. It was getting cold, just not as cold as what it should. And it just kept getting worse over about the past month. I put the gauges on. I was thinking it might just be a little low on Freon. The first thing I noticed, the compressor was engaged, and it was staying engaged. It wasn't cycling, you know, constantly, which is the first indication that you may be low on Freon, is that the compressor only stays engaged just for a few seconds and then it disengages. That's one indication that there's just not enough Freon in the system, which obviously would indicate that some of it's leaked out somewhere. So when I noticed the compressor was staying engaged, that was my first indication that it's probably not low on Freon. So I hooked the gauges up, and the lowest that the low side would go was about 60 psi. The high side would only get up to about 150. Now it was 95 degrees yesterday when I was doing this outside, ambient temperature. So the high side should have been closer to around 250. The low side should have been around 30 to 35. Max, I would say 40. Especially when you're revving it up. But when it only was getting down to 60 on the low side and 150 on the high side, that's a clear indication that the compressor is just not up to the task of doing its job. And the inside temperature, the air coming out of the vents, was right around 62 degrees. That was the coldest that I could get it. So we're going to put a compressor on, and we're going to put an accumulator on. And yeah, go from there. So let me kind of get set up. I'm going to take this cover off, which is nothing more than these little plastic clips. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. This piece will come off. Then I'll show you the accumulator. I'll go ahead and remove the plenum here. Looks like there's a bolt there and a bolt here. And it looks like this whole air plenum here will pop off there. And that's just going to give us a little bit more access to kind of work with the compressor down there. And then eventually I'm going to have to jack it up, probably get the wheel off of it, and get that side cover off so that we can get to the belt and everything. And probably end up having to pull the lower shroud off underneath the bumper cover here. I don't have a manual for this vehicle, So I'm kind of winging this, just trying to see what I'm going to have to do to be able to access what I need. So hopefully we can work our way through this. Anyway, let me get all set up and I'll turn you back on. Okay, so got all the clips out of this piece. So that comes off. Set it down over here. Got the 10mm bolts out here, just 2 of them. And then this piece just pops off. And that opens up quite a bit of room now that we can kind of work. Let me get my light. You can see the accumulator right there. It's the long cylinder looking thing. So I will be taking that lower shroud off down there so that we can reach up from the bottom if we need to. I believe that accumulator or receiver dryer, I think they call it receiver dryer on this particular make and model. Yeah, this is the little unit right there. So there's a pressure switch in that end where that cap is, and then there's just a couple holes right there. There is a fastener. That's just a piece of aluminum tape they've got stuck over there to keep stuff out of it. This one's made in China. You always want to replace the receiver dryer if you replace the compressor. They say, now if this particular compressor has gotten weak, I don't know if it's actually created any kind of metal that it's shot through the system, but that's the risk you take if you don't replace the receiver dryer, which is where the metal ends up going most of the time. Sometimes these little small, you know how thin these condensers are nowadays, sometimes the condensers get clogged up too. So you got to keep that in mind. Nowadays a lot of manufacturers recommend changing the condensers. So, you know, be aware of that. We're not going to change the condenser on this one. So I'm going to have to get down there to get to that receiver dryer. And we're going to get to the compressor. Okay, so I'm here in the front. I'm going to try to leave the tire on. Just because I don't want to have to take it off. I don't have to. I'm going to take this cover off. It's the same little plastic clips. There's about, what I see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 5. The one on the bottom is actually already gone. So I think there's only 4 I'm going to have to take out, but there should be 5. The bottom one just fell out or wasn't put back in at some other time. So I'm going to pop these clips out and get this cover off, and that's going to give us a good view. I've got the car up on stands. Never work under a car without jack stands. I have also taken just the front. There's I think about 5 or 6 10mm bolts, and then this front piece will come down, and that's got me a pretty good view of the accumulator right there. So that might be all I need. You can also see the accumulator in here. I don't have my light with me right now, but anyway, whenever I get to that, you'll see it. So I'm going to take that cover off. I'm just going to pop those 4 or 5 clips out, get that cover off, and we'll get started. All right, about 10 seconds later, we got those clips out. And you can see the crank pulley, the compressor is right up in there. There's the panel, there's the clips. And these clips, all you do is you pull out on, you get up underneath them, you can use a screwdriver, and then as this thing pulls up, it allows the end of it to compress back down instead of being expanded out, and they'll pop right out of there. So far I haven't even broken any of those, so I'm pretty happy with these style tips. Some of these clips, they get so brittle, whenever you try to take them out, you break them off. Anyway, set that right there. And let's crawl up underneath here and let's see what we've got. Okay, so there's the compressor. This is as far out as this camera will zoom out. So hopefully you can get kind of an idea of what's going on here. But so we got a couple bolts. We got that bolt, that bolt. I think there's only one up top. There might be two, and then a couple lines, and then a couple connectors. Oh, and the belt. We got to loosen the belt off. Where am I at here? Okay, hopefully you guys can see that hex. You know, it looks like a bolt head. That is the tensioner point that you want to get on with a wrench or a socket to loosen the tension off of the belt. Just so you know the one I'm talking about. Yeah, see that right there? That's what you want to get your socket on. And I'm going to have to set the camera down to get this on there real quick, and then I'll come right back. Okay, so you can see it on the tensioner. Now, hold on a second. I've got to get a little bit of a cheater on this thing because it's not long enough for me. Hold on. Okay, so I'm on it, and now if you watch the pulley, see how the pulley, how the tension comes off the pulley? So now I'm going to take this belt off. I'm going to have to use both hands, so I'm going to have to obviously put the camera down. How much of that you guys got, but my camera is dead, I guess, but I've got this belt loosened off. So I'm using my phone now, so I'm not going to be able to mount it or anything because I don't have any kind of an actual mount for my phone. But so I've got the tensioner. You got a bolt right above the tensioner where I've got that socket, and that'll loosen the tensioner off so that you can get the belt off. You can see I've got the belt's off. I've got it completely off the compressor. There's a couple bolts down here. I think I've already showed them. So we'll go after those bolts right there, right there. There's a couple connectors on this compressor. I don't think this compressor is not going to fit out through the bottom. I can already tell that. So it's either going to have to come out this way, which I might have to take more of this plastic shroud off, which is no big deal. Looks like some clips. You can see I've got my wrench hooked up to give me a little more leverage on that short breaker bar. That's a 3/8. It's a 17 millimeter socket, by the way. You're going to need a 17 millimeter for this bolt right here. For that tensioner, it's not a bolt, it's a tensioner hexagon, so you can get on it with a wrench or a socket. Anyway, let me get to the next step of getting this compressor loosened off, and we'll go from there. Okay, I went ahead and pulled the wheel off just so I could get more access, since I think this compressor is going to have to come out this way. So what I'm going to do now is this inner fender liner I'm taking out, and all it is you can see where it's split right here. There's the same clips, plastic clips, and it'll pop right out of there. So I'm gonna have to set the phone down, but I'm just gonna pull these clips out. There's one there, there's one there, one up top. Looks like there's maybe 3 or 4. I don't know about down here yet. I'll get to the bottom, and we'll go from there. I don't know what's on the bottom. Hold on. maybe some screws. But anyway, that's the next step. Okay, so 3 minutes later, 3 Phillips down along the bottom here, and then the rest were clips. It doesn't split right there the way I thought it did, but it's really flexible. So I just flexed it back and stuck it behind the wheel. You can see right there the compressor. That's probably the point we're going to pull it out and put the new one in, and everything will be good then. And then we'll go after the dryer once I get the compressor out, get the new one in, and so forth. So let me see what my next step's going to be here. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these connectors. Sorry if the phone's not. And I'm going to get a, looks about like a 13 millimeter for those. I'm going to get a little screwdriver so that I can pop this connector here off. It's kind of tight. And so I'll get the bottom stuff off here, then we'll go up top. Okay, and these bolts on the bottom of the compressor are 12 millimeters. And they're pretty long, which is why I didn't unscrew them all the way with my ratchet, because I would have trapped my ratchet in there. And again, I'm having to use my phone, so sorry that I can't mount it. I don't really have a mount for my phone. I always use my other camera, and it just died on me. Okay, so there's the bolts. 2 bolts on the bottom. There's that connector. Alright, now we're going to go up top. Okay, so you got a 10 millimeter on that hose, and then there's another one right behind it there. So once this hose is up and out of the way, I ought to be able to get straight down on that other one. I'm just going to use a 10 millimeter on a long extension to get to them. And then, okay, yeah, there's 2 more bolts, 12 millimeters up top, and then the compressor will be free. So, again, I'm going to take the 10 millimeter off there. Once I get that bolt out, I'll come back and show you pulling this hose off. Okay, I just loosened the nut, or the bolt off, so this should pop right up out of there. There's the end of it. Got an O-ring. Make sure you always put new O-rings on. And now you can see that other one. In fact, I'll go ahead and get it real quick. They're not real tight. And what I'm using is a long extension. Got it hooked up to the old cordless. Okay, am I lined up? Where are you at? I happen to fumble around here. Came off of it. Trying to look through the camera. Okay, sounded like it was everything. Okay, there's the bolt. And just kind of tug on it. I'm gonna try to keep this one up top. I'll keep that one down below. So other than the two 12 millimeters there, there's okay, I guess I didn't need to take that bottom connector off. I don't know. Let's take a, well, I don't have the new one out of the box right now. So I'm going to disconnect. It looks like there's two more connectors there. I don't know if I needed to disconnect that other one. I think the new one might have that. We'll take a look here in a minute. But I'm going to disconnect those connectors, pull that harness up, kind of get it out of my way, get those two 12 millimeter bolts out, and pull that compressor out. Okay. So here's that harness. I'm going to just kind of loop it up here so that it stays up and out of the way. So the only thing left is those two, oh, you can't see, the two 12 millimeters there. And then that compressor should be free. And we'll see what's going to be next after that. Bolts are loose. I think the compressor. Yep, there's. Alright, compressor's completely loose. Let's see what it's going to take to get it out of here. Okay, I think the best possibility here to get this thing out is to unclip this line from these clips right here. There's two of them. And hopefully this thing's going to be flexible enough to where I can move it and pull that compressor out this way. And to give you an idea, there's another shot of the of where I had that ratchet. Actually, it's a breaker bar with a 17 millimeter to take the tension off of the tensioner. Okay, so there's the hole we're going to come out of. Let me get a screwdriver and see about getting these broke loose so that we can pop that line out of there. And all it is, just so you know, it's just little plastic clips. Once they snap in, it holds it in there. I'm going to get a screwdriver, pop it up out of there, and I'm gonna have to take this one out, I think. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna break it trying to finagle that compressor out of there. So I want that, you know, not to be in the frame. So sorry that I have to keep shutting you down whenever I'm doing this stuff, but I don't have a way to hold the phone and do what I'm doing. I need both hands. Okay, got the little plastic piece popped off there. That one's still on there. And I'll pop that, I'll snap that one back in whenever I'm got this compressor finished. But that does seem to give quite a bit of room. So I'm going to finagle this compressor out of here and get that new one in there. Alright, be back. Okay, compressor's out. Probably worked about 30 seconds on getting it. Sure enough, that helped. That kind of just pushes down out of the way when you're pulling it out, but it came out pretty easy. So I'm going to set it over here and we're going to take a look at the new one, make sure the new one looks just like this, and then we'll start putting the new one in. Okay, there's the old compressor. There's the new. They are identical, and this is new. This is not remanufactured. I don't recommend remanufactured. I've had way too many problems sticking remanufactured compressors on, and they just don't last. And yeah, the connector, that first connector I took off is down here on the bottom, and you don't have to take that off because it just runs up, and here it is right here on the compressor. So once I get this in, these two connectors, I'm going to leave these in until I get this compressor in, then I'll pull these off. This compressor's got 3 ounces of oil already in it, so I'm not going to have to add a whole lot of oil to the system to get the right amount. And it does come with the proper O-rings, so always make sure you put new O-rings on, and always lube them with a good refrigerant lubrication. So the compressors are identical. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one pushed up in the hole, and I'll get the bolts in, and then I'll probably come back after that. Let you see the progress. Okay, compressor's on, bolts are tight. Just finished tightening the bolts up. Got the compressor in. What I was going to do was see if I can show you guys. There's no way I can. There's no good way for me to mount this phone. I was going to actually put the belt on and kind of show you how that was done, but I'm not going to be able to. What I can do, okay, so there's the, you can see how the pulley's moving. I've got my breaker bar with 17mm on it. So the only thing now is to get the belt on all the pulleys except for the last one. And I think on this one it's probably going to be easiest just to leave it off of the compressor. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull on this to release the tension and put the belt on the compressor pulley, and then let off the tensioner to put the tension back on the belt. So I'm going to have to put the phone down. Okay, and there it is. That was literally 15 seconds worth of getting the belt on. The only other thing that you want to do is make sure you look at the belt and make sure that you've hit all the grooves on everything. Make sure that, I haven't really looked up top. I don't think that anything came off up top, but you definitely want to look. And let's take a look here. So it's still on the alternator. What else we got back there? Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, so on this car it's just the alternator is all we have up top. So you can kind of see the tensioner down there. Nah, I can't really get it. But anyway, belt's on. That's the important thing. So the bolts are tight, belt's on. I'm going to go ahead and hook the connectors up on the harness, and then we'll put the lines back on with new O-rings. Okay, got new O-rings on. Now, let that one go. You want to use a good refrigerant lube before you pop these in. This one was the tighter one to get to, or the one that was covered up, so I'm going to have to put it in first. Okay. So it's all the way down there. All I got to do is put the bolt in, tighten it up, and then I'll do the same with that one, and then the compressor will be done. And then we'll go to the receiver dryer. Okay. So both of them are tight. So the compressor's done. Both connectors are hooked up, all 4 bolts are tight, both lines are tight, and the belt's on. So, okay.